How do you really get the best out of your team? I mean, it's the million-dollar question for any leader, right? Well, today we're going to dive into a framework called Evaluate and Assist. And trust me, it's a simple but seriously powerful way to navigate the often chaotic waters of teamwork and make sure you actually reach your destination. To really wrap our heads around this, I want you to picture something with me. Imagine your team, but they're not in an office. They're the crew on a giant sailing ship. And your project goal? That's the distant shore you're sailing to. It's going to be a long, maybe even tough journey. And just like on a real ship, success, well, it all comes down to everyone working together, pulling the right ropes at the right time. It's a cool visual, right? A team on a ship. But it immediately brings up the big, scary question that every single leader has to face. You know, with all the unexpected storms and hidden dangers out there, how in the world do you keep the ship from running aground? How do you keep from getting completely lost? Well, that is exactly what this framework is designed to prevent. All right, so let's set sail and get into the philosophy of this whole thing. Before we jump into the nuts and bolts of how to do this, we really need to understand the why, because it all kicks off with a pretty big shift in how we think about working together.
So at the very heart of this entire system is this simple but honestly pretty profound idea from Mackenzie. It's often summed up with this Japanese phrase, feedback wa gift de aru, which means feedback is a gift. Now I know, that sounds nice, but it's way easier said than done, isn't it? Let's be real, feedback can sting. It often feels like criticism. The whole point here is to completely refrain that. Don't think of it as a critique. Think of it as a priceless piece of information, a gift that helps the crew spot a tiny leak in the hull before it turns into a major disaster.
Okay, so if feedback is a gift, how do we actually, use it? That brings us to the first piece of the puzzle, evaluate. And sticking with our ship metaphor, I want you to think of this as the ship's compass. It's the one tool that tells you where you are, if you're actually heading in the right direction, and crucially, when you need to change course. And let me be super clear about this. The purpose of evaluation here is not to judge or to punish, not at all. It is 100% about growth. It's just a structured way to measure, okay, this is where we are, and this is where we all agreed we wanted to be. And the whole reason for doing it is to help every single person on the team, and by extension, the whole team, get better. Simple as that. Now, for this compass to actually work, the environment has to be right. You need 3 critical things. First up is openness. That just means everyone's got to be willing to actually receive that gift of feedback without getting defensive. Second, explicitness. No beating around the bush. We're talking clear, direct, honest conversations. And number 3, agreement. This one is huge. Everybody has to be on the same page about the destination and how you're going to measure getting there before the voyage even begins. So what does this actually look like in practice? Well, it starts with just talking openly about how everyone on the team prefers to work. From that conversation, you build your expectations together, and you keep an eye on them. And then, and this is the best part, all that feedback you've been gathering gets turned into real, tangible development plans for each person. It becomes a space where people can actually share what they're good at and what they struggle with, so the whole team can pitch in to help. All right, you've got your compass. You know you're heading. But a compass doesn't move the ship, right? For that, you need the rigging. All the ropes and sails that catch the wind and actually push you forward. And that is the second half of this framework, assist. This is all about the doing. It's about getting the crew to work together in the most effective way possible. And the key idea here, the secret sauce for the assist part, is understanding the difference between 2 things, skill and will. It's pretty simple, really. Skill is what someone can do, their raw talent, their experience. Will is what they want to do, their passion, their motivation. And let me tell you, finding that perfect intersection of skill and will for each person, that's how you unlock some serious team performance. So how do you do it? It breaks down into 3 pretty straightforward rules. First, you basically take an inventory of everyone's skill and will. This helps you put the right crew member on the right task. Second, you make roles and deadlines crystal clear. No confusion. Everybody knows exactly what their job is and when it's due. And third, you deliver that feedback gift quickly and in a way that helps, not hinders. That's what keeps the momentum going. Okay, theory is one thing, but what happens when the ship hits a storm? Let's look at a couple of real-world stories from the high seas of teamwork to see how this framework actually holds up when things get messy. So, check out this first case. You've got this massive digital transformation project. On one side, you have the IT engineers, the ones building the whole system. On the other, you have the folks on the ground, the people who actually live and breathe the data every day. And then this one seemingly simple question pops up. So who's actually supposed to check if the final data is correct? And suddenly, silence. Crickets. Nobody knows, people start pointing fingers, and boom, the entire project just stops dead in the water. So what did they do? They brought in the ASSIST model. They literally mapped out the skill and will for both teams, and the aha moment was immediate. They realized the roles were all mixed up. The engineer's skill was in automation, building the process. But the site staff, they had the expertise and, more importantly, the will to make sure the data itself, the content, was perfect. As soon as they redefined the roles along those lines, everything just clicked. The project started moving again, just like that. All right, story number 2. This one's a classic. You've got a team member who's been tasked with this super complicated cost analysis. Problem is, they've never done anything like it before. They're totally stuck. But you know how it is. Pride, a bit of fear. They don't want to look like they don't know what they're doing, so they say nothing. And their silence is creating this massive logjam for the entire project. This time, the solution came from the other side of the framework: evaluate. And this is key. The leader didn't single the person out or put them on the spot. Instead, they just kept reinforcing that core idea. Hey everyone, remember, feedback is a gift. They deliberately created this safe, low-pressure space for conversation. And that was all it took. It gave that team member the permission they needed to just say, hey, I'm struggling with this. And what happened? The team immediately jumped in to help, and they avoided what could have been a huge delay. So we've journeyed through the whole framework. We've seen it weather a few storms. Now let's bring the ship back to port and talk about the leader's role in all this. Think of these as the captain's final orders. At the end of the day, if you're the leader, you are the captain of this ship. And your job isn't to hoist every sail or scrub the deck by yourself. No way. Your job is to be the architect of trust. You use evaluate as your compass to make sure you're always heading true north. And you use assist as the rigging to capture the full power of your crew's collective strength. Your goal is to turn feedback from a brutal headwind that slows you down into a powerful tailwind that speeds you toward your destination. And that's really the question I want to leave you with. Think about your team, your ship, your voyage. How is feedback treated? Is it truly a gift, a tailwind that everyone welcomes because it pushes you forward faster? Or does it feel more like a storm on the horizon, something that makes everyone run for cover? Because how you answer that question might just be the difference between reaching your destination and ending up lost at sea.